Kiana Martin, founder of Eat Soccer, as well as organizer for the NYC Soccer Industry Meetup Group. Thank you so much for joining us. And in case you do not know, the NYC Soccer Industry Meetup Group is a group for anyone whose past, present, and future work revolves around the world's favorite sport, from media to marketing to events to athlete representation and all levels of club operations. We meet to network, share best practices, and learn from world-class stakeholders, influencers, and experts. So in today's discussion, the topic centers around how I navigated the game, and I'm so pleased that I'm joined by former professional soccer player and current Charleston Battery assistant coach, John Wilson. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thanks for having me, Kiana. It's a pleasure to be here.
So just to kind of give people a brief background on John. So John grew up in my hometown. We grew up in the same town. And to give people context for what John has accomplished and the type of place that we grew up is, it's roughly a population of about 8,100 people. It's kind of fluctuated over the years. And it has been the birthplace or childhood home for people like Willie Aikens, former MLB first baseman, Dennis Hughes, who was a former NFL tight end, and Benny Cunningham, who was an accomplished Steelers tight end. And so for a tiny town to produce that much athletic talent, and then also on top of that, our area is known, has been classified by the U.S. Department of Education as a dropout factory. A dropout factory is defined as a place where less than 50% of the students graduate from high school. So when I talk about all of these other esteemed athletes who have been born and raised in this community and gone on to accomplish amazing things in sport, the next person who's a part of that list is John Wilson. And so given that I've talked about all of these like facts and things about our background and how we grew up and being in such esteemed company, what does that make you think when you say, you know, this small town has produced so much athletic talent and we've come out of a situation where the cards have really been stacked against us? And then you look back on all the things that you've accomplished, be it you played, you won an ACC championship with Clemson University. You got drafted by the Kansas City Wizards, who later became Sporting KC. You played in Copa Sudamericana with DC United. You've spent, you know, a large portion of your career with the Charleston Battery, and now you're assistant coach in a sport that traditionally the African-American community has not even been on the field to participate in. What does that mean to you? And do you ever look back on that journey and say, oh my goodness, look at all of these things that I have pioneered and blazed the trail for?
Now that you brought it up and brought up those memories and spoke about our town, I really now look at it as more of a blessing and an accomplishment. I think on purpose, I tuned that out back in the day. I even tuned it out afterwards, and I was a bit naive. I kind of was tunnel vision. I didn't think about Seneca being a dropout factory. I didn't think about, for some time, that I was the only maybe Black African-American soccer player. Mm-hmm. Now that you say that, it makes me feel that I have accomplished something. Hopefully I did inspire others as well. There were a lot of people from that area who helped me get there. Mm-hmm. So just hearing you say it, it's like reflecting back in your journal, and it puts things in perspective for myself, even now as a coach. And it also makes some of those, what I thought were failures, whether it was on a team or injuries, it makes me feel that I did and I have accomplished something.
Well, I mean, I can just say personally, I would not be involved in soccer if it wasn't for you. Mm-hmm. I literally asked you one day, like, hey, I think I'm going to try out for the soccer team. And I literally like was asking for your blessing, and you were just like, yeah, I think you should do it. So like you have been like that, you know, when people enter into certain sports and, you know, discover certain passions for things, they usually can point to an experience or a person. And, you know, you've been that for me. I think I've told you that in kind of a roundabout way, but like it just, all of these things, even, you know, this conversation now, it all goes back to you actually making it okay for me to like take a chance and participate.
Yeah, I appreciate that. Probably back in the day, I didn't understand that. But when you look at it from that standpoint and you look at it from life, that an individual statement, an individual act, it can be the catalyst for something. That's how I started playing. And I had someone that gave me the opportunity to say, hey, it's okay. It's okay to go do something that someone else is not doing. It's okay to go do something that's maybe outside of, if you want to call it, your community. It's okay to go do something when there's someone of maybe not your color or socioeconomic standing. It's okay. And, you know, I had that, and I have to continue to give that to others. And right now you're bringing up a lot of things that I didn't forget about it. It's just bringing it back to mind. So it's pretty cool to hear and to reflect on it.
What, so speaking of that, who or what was the experience that was the catalyst for you? And before you answer, I'll just let people know. John did a TEDx that is absolutely amazing, and he can tell you a little bit about that. And it gives you the backstory of how he, you know, was introduced to the sport. But can you right now tell us what was that experience that actually put you in the game?
It was basically just watching the World Cup and someone raise a trophy. No, I'm kidding. You know, people have those stories of you know, like basketball. I never forget watching Michael Jordan play, win a championship, and I wanted to be a basketball player. No, back then there was no Premier League on. There was no Manchester United on, which is my team. There was no MLS. The only thing I knew about soccer was it was a ball that was black and white. And I've told this story a lot, and I continue to tell it because it's to me it's dear to my heart. I think it's powerful as well that I had a friend who was white, who was from Louisiana, and took me to a practice one day. Coach asked me if I want to play, and I started playing. And I always say that once I stepped on the field, I was great. Actually, I was horrible, and I was pretty bad. But going back to your point, you know, that my friend Andy, Nita, my teammates, and the coach, then they made it okay for me to succeed in something that was totally different. They
Now,
embraced it.
I didn't mean to cut you off. What a lot of people think when you step on the field, there's a certain way that you have to do that. Can you let us know what were you wearing when you decided, you know what, I'm just gonna get out here and start seeing what this is about?
Yeah, I had on a pair of black and white high top Larry Bird Converse. Back then, for my birthday, I wanted high tops. If we went shopping, as you know, back in the day, you had to go school shopping, which is I find hilarious that you had to go buy all this stuff before school. And I buy high tops. And my first day, I had a pair of black and white Larry Bird high tops on, some tight black jogging pants, and a white T-shirt. And that was what I wore. I didn't have the new Mercurials, the Vapors. I didn't have the new Nike socks. I didn't have the Adidas shorts. I didn't have the Manchester United jersey. I had some jogging pants, high tops, and a white tee. And that was what allowed me to start to play that day, and people embraced me. They could have said easily, this kid's got on a pair of high tops. But instead of that, they embraced me. So I thank Larry Bird and Converse for making those shoes. Even though Michael Jordan was my hero, but when I saw those black and white Laird Converse, I said, yeah, I got to put those on. So yeah, honestly, that's why I still wear some type of Converse to this day. They're just not black and white high tops.
So, being that I'm assuming you were the only Black player on the field, or were there others when you
There
first?
were, was it Winston and Jeffrey? There were two other players, Winston and Jeffrey. Jeffrey Cleveland actually was, I believe to this day, one of the best players I ever played with.
Mm-hmm.
But we went different directions. He was actually the running back at Hannah High School.
Oh, okay.
He would have been a better player than me. I mean, he was at that time. He was the first African American young player that I saw. It was like, wow, like the first athlete, like soccer player I really saw.
Mm-hmm.
But there was only three of us, which was amazing back then. If you think about that, and they were from Anderson. I think Winston went to Hannah or West Side as well. But on other teams, there weren't many, and obviously three's not a lot, but it's enough, right?
It's a start.
It's a start, yeah.
Start
So,
to let you know you're not alone.
right, and now that you said it, that's the amazing that there were three of us back then. We didn't play together all our years. I'm trying to think the most I've ever had on a team at the youth level was probably three. Yeah. But yeah, back then that was, wow. That was pretty amazing back then, because that's not what you did as a black young man, as a black teen. Usually they say, hey, you go play football, baseball, basketball,
Or run track.
or yeah, exactly, run track. And it's sad to say, you're from your own community, sometimes they're wondering why you're doing it, because I think they've been trained in ways, whether it's sports or business, to say that's not what we do, and not realizing that nobody owns the sport, nobody owns that sector of a business, and you may have a talent for that.
Mm-hmm.
And then you have the other side that's kind of looking at you like, why are you playing this? This is not what you're supposed to be doing. I even had one coach ask me, are you still playing that communist sport?
Oh my goodness.
Yeah, I had to go home and I asked Mom. I said, Mom, I'm a communist because I play soccer?
What did your mom say?
She just laughed. She was like, my mom was always the one who was like, if you're having fun, play it. Yeah. So yeah, that's what's so funny is how we as people can take something that no one owns, something that has a lot of good in it,
Mm-hmm.
but we can have a perspective on it that, no, you're not supposed to do that, or that's not what we do. And when you do that, you miss out on opportunities individually, but you're also not inspiring individuals to use their talents that in turn create more opportunity. That's why you hear individuals say later in their life, wow, I wish I would have done this. I've had people say to me from Seneca, like, I wish I would have played soccer growing up.
Yeah.
And I know why they didn't,
Mm-hmm.
because they probably didn't have someone in their family, or it wasn't what a black woman or a black man did.
Mm-hmm.
And then you look back and you're like, oh, I wish I would have done it. And, it wasn't easy sometimes, but I had a tunnel vision. I had some good people around me. I had some people I call champions, some people who stood up for me, not only as an athlete, but just as a person.
So, to speak to that, a couple of things. First, I want to ask you about, you had the core group of champions around you. I'm assuming they were from the majority, that they were Caucasian or of other communities. What was the perception once you started to playing from your own community, be it, your family, be it other people in our community? Because I will say, from the outside looking in, I often wondered, like, people don't give him any kind of flack about this. Like, it was just like your brand was soccer. And I wondered if it was like, are they also not like messing with him about it because he also kicks the field goals for,
Mhm.
you know, the football team. And then you did have this older brother who played a traditional sport and was really good at it. So it was like, he's such and such little brother. And so it was like, maybe he has a couple of like places where he can get a little shielding from like the backlash of what is this guy doing? Because it's like people kind of knew like, oh, he's going over here to play. He's going to, it was just like this unspoken thing about like this mysterious soccer situation you had going on. And people just like, I thought left you alone to like live it and do it. And was that really what your experience was?
Um, not not at the start. It was the sport was still a very unknown back then, I believe, for our community, meaning Seneca and also African Americans. When I first started, there was that bit of, why is he doing that? Why, that's not the sport he's supposed to be playing. And then once again, I was tunnel vision. It was so exciting to me and new that even the statements you just made about, oh man, he's doing that. I was in my own world
Mm-hmm.
because everything was so new to me. From just the traveling to, and then once I realized that, okay, I'm actually good at this, then it was like something that I could own, and I just ran with it. But as I got older, you had to start to navigate how people viewed you. It helps when you are a decent player. People then are like, oh, okay, well, he's good at this. So now they want to find out about the sport, but you still have to navigate. I still have to navigate certain areas of life. I knew like football wasn't going to be my number one sport, and
Mm-hmm.
the way that football, it was almost back where we grew up. Football, I believe, and soccer always clashed because of how the sports were viewed. Football was viewed as the American sport.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
It was viewed at, as the European sport. Soccer was viewed as they're not tough. Football, we're men. We're gonna knock each other's heads off.
Mm-hmm.
And in reality, they're both they both have similarities. They both ask you to think. They both ask you to be fit.
Mm-hmm.
And so I had to navigate that, and I am thankful that the coaches let me navigate that. But as a black player, it was different though. You know that when you step on a field, a lot of times you are possibly the only one out there, and there's a good chance they're going to say, "Oh, he's a good athlete,"
Mm-hmm.
and I was a good athlete, but I also well, I was pretty good technically and tactically, and I always felt like eyes were on me.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously, because I'm a little bit darker, just a little bit dark, and then as well, I was supposed to be the player that could hold the team together sometimes, and that adds pressure. When you feel like you have to live up to something and live up to who you are as a black teen, live up to who you are as a player. And if there was social media back then, I think it would have been tougher actually for me. Yeah.
Do you I know everybody, because of all the things that are going on with George Floyd, Breonna Taylor, all of these senseless murders, that people are starting to do a lot of reflection on systemic racism.
Mm-hmm.
And it's something we spoke about briefly over the weekend of now people are starting to recall instances that maybe we've kind of pushed aside because it's like, well, I'm in the middle of the sport, or I'm in the middle of just trying to get to the next step of my journey. What are some of the things that you're starting to recall about, whether it's interactions or perceptions or slights or I mean, just blatant racism that you've had to deal with, throughout your journey, playing soccer?
Yeah, twice. I think it was twice in my, once in high school, once in club. I was called the N word, um, and I didn't handle either one of them very well. I mean, most people know me as pretty calm. There's probably other instances, but that they see me as being someone that can, kind of go off, and I went off.
Yeah.
And that, I reflected on those times, and I would handle it different, but also I would say that, you know, there's no reason for it, because, the color of your skin has nothing to do with whether you're a good player, or a bad player. Also notice that, when you go into a team, and this is when I got older, the perception of me, it took time for them to get to know me, because I think they had a perception of a black athlete, and it took time for them to almost get to know me, to get used to me. And there were other times where I did feel slighted in certain areas, but I always knew I had to work hard. I always knew I had to work hard, and I was I'm a person, still a person that believes in people, but as you get older, you realize you can't be that naive sometimes. And I was naive to think that if I work hard, play hard, and do the best I can, that I would have opportunities that that others may not. And as I got older, I started to realize that what effect that has or had on me is, I call it navigating. I learned how to navigate certain situations. The downside to that can be you can lose a little bit of who you are,
Mm-hmm.
because I was trying to make sure that I create an opportunity for myself, for my family, but also for others. But if you're not careful, you can lose who you are. And then as well, you're not letting that other person know, hey, what you're doing is not all right.
Mm-hmm.
And me and a good buddy of mine, a former basketball player, we had that conversation, and not too long ago, talking about the millennials, and he was like, oh, like the millennials. And then he's like, but I tell you what, man, right now they're speaking up. And I think what he was getting at, it was that he wished he would have spoken up. When I say speak up, having a conversation with somebody about something that may rub you the wrong way. And a big part of my career was navigating those things. And once again, I was tunnel vision. I think after being called the N-word twice, I think that's probably why I was so tunnel vision. So I didn't go off,
Mm-hmm.
because back then, if you did certain things, you could be labeled a
Yeah.
troublemaker.
Uh-huh.
Oh no, he's a troublemaker. So you had to walk this line. If you played well, it was great. If you didn't, you don't hear it like it is now with social media. But it was different. It was a different environment.
Um, Let me see, to speak to having those tough conversations that some, people are bringing to light now. Why do you think people, during your time, at certain points, did not feel comfortable having those conversations? And what are some of the conversations that people need to be having now to move, the conversation forward towards equal treatment, or, different perception, as opposed to like lumping the Black community into one category? Oh, all Black athletes are alike, as opposed to seeing them individually as people, or even how they speak about them. They're fast, they're strong, Maybe they're not technical, maybe they're not intelligent, maybe they're not, things like that. What are the steps you think people need to start taking in order to have, forward movement?
I think one of the biggest things is fear. Fear of what they may not know. Also assumptions, also perspectives that have been created in society, maybe in their family. One of the champions that I talk about, I always talk about her, is Nita and Andy Mace. They're great people, but what they did, they got to know me.
Mm-hmm.
They didn't let fear stop them from getting to know me and my family. And our families were totally different, even outside of race. Our families are totally different, but we're still friends to this day. Mm-hmm. Fear plays a big role. And I told someone the other day, when you don't take on that fear head on, you're never going to be free. You're going to have this perspective of someone that is going to keep you from actually maybe making a new friend, teammate, actually someone that maybe can help you. But I noticed through my career, people didn't, like, I'm now starting to have talks with my good friends who are white. These are people I've known for years. This is the first time we're having where someone asked me a question, hey, have you ever had to, wear bright clothes when you run? Have you ever been called inward? Have you ever felt like you didn't get an opportunity because it's like, now we're having it. And I wish that would happen years ago, but I'm glad they're happening now. It's amazing what conversations will do. It's amazing what those conversations will break down, maybe some perspective, perceptions and thoughts that people had. I think that's where it starts. And when you do that, you're hearing it from the horse's mouth. You're not hearing it from somebody on Fox or CNN. Mm-hmm. Like, it's like me. I'm hearing your stories now, and we're friends, and that hits home. If it doesn't hit home when your friend tells you that, and that's when you got something wrong. But when your friend shares a story about, their hurt, their pain, and what they've had to go through, it hits home. Because I was telling a friend the other day, when I was playing and when I got to school, I wasn't just playing for myself. In the back of my mind, I knew that. Mm-hmm. I was playing for my family, mm-hmm. and I was playing for other minorities or people who didn't have an opportunity. Mm-hmm. And I was talking to my brother the other day, and this is going to sound a little bit, I don't want to say it sounds bad, but I used to say whenever something will happen to an athlete, Black or a Black female or male athlete, it would hurt me. Mm-hmm. It would hurt me, meaning like I would see them in the paper, not for a good reason. Mm-hmm. It would eat at me, and I would use this kind of, I would say, man, why can't we just do better? I stopped saying that because I realized there wasn't an equal playing field. What they did, after looking at some other people, it wasn't handled the same way. Mm-hmm. They didn't have the same justice. Yeah. And another reason I would say that, because I knew that what people would hold that against not just that individual, but they would hold it against those other minority players. Yeah. And I've seen that. I have witnessed that. I have witnessed athletes who were quality people, quality athletes, who maybe did something wrong. And their lives changed and went here. When somebody else, theirs just, okay, did it, went on. And if you, I believe if you ask other minority athletes, they'd say the same thing, because they knew that if if this athlete over here, a minority athlete, messed up, it's almost like it messes up for everybody.
Yeah, it closes the door.
Right. So that's what I felt like when I was playing. I had to play for, like I said, my family and those who maybe may not have the opportunity. You had to walk a fine line.
Well, to speak to, perceptions, there's perceptions about Black players outside of our community, and then there's perceptions about Black players, particularly African American players, by their own community.
Mm-hmm.
So there are soccer fans, African American soccer fans, who I've had encounters with that when I was first kind of entertaining how am I going to go about creating my own soccer path, that if you did not talk about the sport in a certain way or approach it in a certain way, they were not particularly welcoming. For instance, if you didn't call it football, you were, not nuanced. Or if you didn't, the opportunities to embrace more people coming into the community sometimes were just as close or if not more harsh than those from white counterparts. Why do you think it's that perception of, well, I don't want to be associated with someone who isn't as nuanced or studied or educated in the sport, especially when you're trying to grow participation from that community?
Yeah,
I wonder, have you even had those experiences because you grew up in the youth soccer system, so people maybe didn't come at you in that way?
I have, and I think it still goes on. It goes on in coaching. It goes on with players. It's funny to me because it's like someone who they all dress the same. They all abide by the same formation. They all use the same lingo. And then I'm like, well, what separates you? What separates you as a coach or as a player?
Mm-hmm.
And yes, it's instead of opening this great game up to everybody, it's almost like they want to keep it to themselves. Mm-hmm. Or they want to own it. They want to say, well, you don't talk this way. Mm-hmm. You don't dress this way.
Yeah.
You're not using the right lingo. Mm-hmm. You don't cheer the right way.
Yeah.
You don't know anything about the Premier League. Oh my, like I love when people say, what team do you support? And then someone says, I support the MLS team. They go, what? MLS? I don't care. I'm just happy that you support a team. Mm-hmm. To grow the game, because when you grow the game, selfishly, I get to watch it more. And when I was playing, that meant I had more opportunities to play. Yeah. But it's almost like this ownership mm-hmm. that they want to have. And I think it needs to be continually broken down. I even see it in coaching. Mm-hmm. And that is one of the things that I'm trying to make sure that as I coach, that I can listen to anybody. Everybody has their opinion. Even someone who doesn't know a lot about soccer, they can open your mind up to other things. And then I've got to be myself.
Yeah.
Let's just say that everybody had the same qualification, the same license, we all dress the same. So why should I hire this person over that person? You got to be yourself. And to do that, you got to bring, to create that environment, you have to bring other people in, other thoughts. I don't want somebody really coaching with me who's just like me. I don't want teammates who are just like me. I want obviously good players, but we can't all be the same type player, right?
That's true.
And I've seen that where they're like, all players got to be this way. And I'm like, why? So it's getting better, but I've seen that, and it's interesting you say that because I was laughing about that the other day.
Do you think that's one of the main reasons why there is a diversity pipeline issue, be it for, how teams, how people are building teams, how people are hiring and giving opportunity to people in coaching staff, or, I've seen everything from, like, if a player is too technical, like, I don't want all that technical stuff out there. If you're not doing simple passes, you're out of here. Or, if you're not from, Britain, or maybe, a favorite part of Latin America, you might not get as much of an opportunity as somebody who has proven themselves, but they're African American, because you're American and you're not international.
Right. Well, I think we all, including myself, have a system, style we want to play. I think there's a player we're looking for. And when you find those players in certain areas, it just makes it easier.
Yeah.
It's just like recruiting at the college level. If you got a hotbed of where the players are,
yeah,
you keep going there.
Mm-hmm.
I do think we do need to look at how we view certain players, because you can fall into the trap of looking at a player and saying, yeah, I always get this type of player from this area. This is where I get my defenders from. This is where I get my number 10s from.
Yeah.
And I think at a young age, some of these players just need to have that opportunity to maybe be in those positions. I'm not sure if that answered your question or not.
Yeah, it does.
But I would like to see players at a younger age being put in some of these positions that you usually don't see them at the top level. I think you see it in Europe a bit more. I think the U.S. is getting there, and I think you have to get these players in, and you have to give them time at a young age to be that player, because when you got a player, I believe, in the center of the field, who is not only athletic, smart, and technical. I mean, that's something tough to find. It really is. But I think those players have to be inspired to continue to be that player. Mm-hmm. At a young age, I was a good athlete, but I probably needed somebody to say, okay, hey, we know you're a good athlete. Let's work harder now on the technical, tactical side of it.
So when it comes to when people meet you and they find out, especially other athletes from the Black community, find out that you're a soccer player, what have been some of the comments or first perceptions of you?
Now?
Throughout your career. I mean, especially you went to Clemson.
Yeah.
Like, hey, Clemson has, even before we, reached this pinnacle of success, they've always had really good, consistent, great football teams. So it's like, the athletes mix and mingle. So what were the perceptions when they first met you? Or how do people approach you as?
At Clemson, they were surprised because, number one, you didn't have many African American players from South Carolina.
Yeah.
I think I was maybe one of the first, or in the first two. Then just the way I talked, they're like, there's no way this guy's from Seneca. Because Seneca, we got some Southern drawl there, right?
Yeah, that's right.
So it would catch them off guard. Mm-hmm. It would surprise them, and they'd be like, okay, cool. But I could tell in their brain they're trying to put pieces together, like, this kid's from Seneca, Black. Why is he playing soccer? How did he start playing? And even at the pro level, people couldn't believe it. But it just shows, it really showed me where we grew up, mm-hmm. how there's a good chance there were not only other people who wanted to play, mm-hmm. but didn't because of fear. It's not what you did as a Black man, mm-hmm. or a Black female. And then taking it further, now it makes me, well, I've always thought this, there's probably vocations in life that they knew, you know what? I want to be an engineer.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I want to be a lawyer. I want to be a politician.
Mm-hmm.
But that's maybe not what your family did,
Mm-hmm.
community did, or what people inspired you to do. There was nobody saying, "Hey, John, go play soccer."
Yeah, guarantee you that. Yes.
Yeah, there was there was there was no one. And going back to what we were talking about earlier, reflecting back, when I was younger, I was like, why do people keep saying you're from Seneca?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Like, yeah, where I'm from. They're like, and now I realize what they were doing. They were like, once again, they were like, how did he start playing in Seneca? But now I say, well, why not?
Yeah.
Why not? That should be what, I don't care if you're black, white, whoever you are, that's what you should think, or else you're going to miss opportunities. It
Yeah.
changed my life. And I had people later saying, I wish I would have played. I always loved the game. But and I had a crossroad too. There was a time when I was like, yeah, I don't know if soccer's for me. And that wasn't because I didn't like it. It was because I felt like I wasn't a part of a certain group.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm glad I had some people that spoke to me and said, if you enjoy doing it and you're good at it, keep doing it. It's going to open more doors for you than if you don't. And I'm thankful that I had those people.
Yeah, because sometimes those conversations, being where we're from, and it happens in other communities, those conversations sometimes don't happen because people are fearful of, if this person continues, maybe what does that say about the choices I have not pursued or I haven't made?
Right. And then you have those who they I don't think they mean harm.
Yeah,
They just don't understand it.
they're speaking from what they know
Right. They're
and
speaking
their
from what they know
experience
exactly. Yeah.
and their fears.
Right. But what I've seen once again is when like you and others out there pursue their dreams, those same ones who maybe weren't sure, they get inspired.
Mm-hmm.
They get inspired, and then they say, "Gosh, I wish I." And that's why I tell young players to pursue whether the game or whatever you're pursuing that may be different, and as long as it's a good thing, pursue it. Even if there are those, even your family sometimes
Yeah.
may not understand, but I know a lot of young people, even athletes who know what they should be doing,
Mm-hmm.
but they don't do it because it's not what you're supposed to do.
Yeah.
And it's actually, when you look at it, it's kind of a simple thing, but sometimes hard to do. Yeah, if you think about it.
Did you have any, the guys when they're trying to put two and two together, like, okay, you play soccer. Did you have any of the guys like, hey, pass me the ball, or ask you more questions, or, outside of just saying, you know what, I wish I would have, or maybe, I know people used to tell me all the time when I would train with a lot of guys in Atlanta, like, I play FIFA. And it's like, if you play FIFA, let me show you a trick. Or, one thing that would happen for me, and I'm curious, that's why I asked you the question about, what was their perception and their response to you. I would have a lot of guys, even some that played at Clemson and would play in the NFL, they would wait till after our training session and challenge me. I wouldn't start, they were like, okay, let me see if you can score on me, which is
Right.
funny. I don't know if it was just because I'm an African American girl that they never, wanted to see what they could take on. But it was just like interesting. Like, I don't think you're just walking up to like random professional basketball players or whatever, saying like, let me take you one-on-one. And I was just like, well, maybe it's because I'm a girl and they think, okay, I could experience this thing, but I know at least I'll win. And they didn't. And then they were even more like, but I was like, but these are the things that it's not as simple as just like, running and kicking as they would.
The bike, yeah. I didn't I didn't have that a lot, but I thought it was always funny when they would, you have some really good athletes. I had some really good friends who were football players, and they'd be like, "Let me show you how to kick this ball." You want to talk about a good laugh? And they usually would toe the ball,
Tell it,
right?
yeah.
I will never forget this though. This is when I played at the Battery, and my buddy, I'm gonna say his name, Carl Baker, was a wide receiver at Clemson.
Mhm.
So he came down to Charleston for a game, and I was able to get him uh, a chance to do like the kick for cash.
Oh, nice.
They got to kick
Yeah,
it on the goal.
yeah.
So I kind of make my way out. I just wanted to see it, and they call his name. He comes out to the field. He points up to the crowd like, yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Oh, yeah. Uh-huh.
He goes up there, kicks it with his toe. The ball just goes like that.
Oh, he didn't ask you for any tips.
This was a football player. He was a football player, baseball player. So I always thought it was funny when those basketball players or football players would, yeah, man, but they passed me the ball. Let me show you something. And they tried to do it.
That's the thing. It was like, I'm definitely going to show you something.
Yeah, yeah. But the cool thing is then they realize like, oh my gosh, this
Yeah,
this
it
ain't
takes.
about how fast you run a 4.3.
Mhm.
You might run a 4.3, but if you can't dribble, it don't matter.
It doesn't matter, and you have to have the endurance. I think that was one thing with the NFL guys I would train with. It's like we would do a lot of endurance stuff, and they were just like, "Let's go." And it's like, well, you have to have speed, but you have to have endurance, and you have to, So I think there was appreciation there. Do you think in those moments you were able to start converting people to
Oh yeah.
even because they know you now they want to learn more about what you do, and then in turn it now their kids are playing soccer and now they're
Yes, yeah. That's how old I am now. Where kids from Seneca are playing now because I had a relationship with their mother or father, and even my friends now, they're watching the game. I think they can appreciate more now the soccer player, what goes into it, how hard it is to run at speed with the ball at your feet.
Mhm,
Not only the fitness level, but the tactical side of it.
mhm,
And I think once again, that's how you help introduce people to new ideas,
mhm,
new ways of thinking. And when they start to see back then, the MLS didn't have the players they have now per se, like these guys who are 6'3", like a
mhm.
Papa,
Yeah,
that are technical, can run like the wind. And when a football player, I know this for a fact, when a football player sees those guys, they almost have like more respect. They're like, oh my gosh,
yeah.
this guy can do that, and
That's our
and
tight end. They're seeing a tight end or a wide receiver, and they're like,
right, or it's like the NBA
mhm,
point guard who's
yeah,
6'9", and that's pretty cool to see. Now, I also think that's why you're seeing more African Americans playing. It's okay now. It's cool now, and then they can see a way for them to be creative on the field and be this player that everyone's looking for. You
mhm,
know, I want to see more of those players in the U.S. I really do, because they're here. I just think we have to help inspire them and train them to be those type of players.
So what do you think, I would say, outside of you coming out of Seneca, and, to be frank, I've done some things in soccer. I'm from
Yeah,
Seneca and you inspired me.
yeah.
Where is everyone else? And what is the pitch that you could or would make to our community in small towns like Seneca or even in our county to say, here's an opportunity not only to just participate in a sport where I consider, I know you the same, that it's a global language. It's literally like if you know something about soccer, you can have an interaction with anyone from any background, especially if they come from a country outside the US because soccer is the world's favorite sport. that's a new experience that can open them up to a whole world of opportunities of just trying things new. What is that conversation like to, evangelize for the sport in our community?
That's a really good question. I still have to go back to how I had to view it, that this is not a black sport. It's not a white sport. It's not a Latino sport. It's everybody's sport. And it's one of the most creative sports.
Mm-hmm.
I think another thing is that it's not about how much money you have. I do think in this country that that's one thing that is infiltrated it. And I heard it back in the day, oh, this is an elitist sport. No, it's not. Just because I love Nike, Adidas, I love all these companies because I wear their stuff. But just because the boots may cost $200 doesn't mean that you need $200 boots.
Mm-hmm.
The great thing about soccer, and I've noticed this lately, I've known it for a while, where I got better, don't get me wrong when I say this, but I got better actually training on my own. That's when it really was maximized. And then I took it to the field. I had I had people to show me what to do the right way.
Yeah.
And then I went and I just trained on my own.
Mm-hmm.
Right now, I believe it's about paying the money to train with other people,
Mm-hmm.
paying the money to the trainer. I'm not saying they're bad things, but this sport allows you to enjoy it so much more by doing the simple things. I spent, there's a lot of, and I tell young players this all the time. I know you see the highlights, but if you could ever see what these players do
Mm-hmm.
on their own, they're probably doing the same things that you're doing. They're just doing it over and over again and doing it the best of their ability.
Mm-hmm.
And I would tell even kids from my hometown is that if you want opportunity in a sport and to have fun, soccer's a way to go.
Yeah.
And you don't even need to start out at a big club.
Yeah.
There's a player here in Charleston. I've watched him since he was, maybe 7 years old.
Mm-hmm.
Played for a small club. His dad was the coach.
Mm-hmm.
All he did was watch games, come to Battery games. I'm sure he was watching YouTube games of the top leagues. He probably didn't play for a big club until maybe, 12, 13.
Mm-hmm.
So, you have individuals, including myself, who, we train some of the top players, but it starts earlier in that. It starts, I believe, if a parent can go outside and kick the ball with their son or daughter, they're developing skills, and then train on your own.
Yeah.
That's what makes the sport so great. I love football, but if you want to catch a pass in football, you guys have somebody throw it to you, even though I try to myself.
Right. All you need is a wall and a ball.
Yeah. All you need is a wall and imagination.
Yeah, that's true.
That's what I loved about the game. I could be creative. I could do so much. That's why I had no problem going and training on my own. So, and I would say if those athletes from my hometown or any place else, get a ball, go out, start playing a little bit, mess around. Don't be afraid to try stuff. And when you do start playing, don't let anybody take away your creativity.
Mm-hmm.
Don't let anybody put you in a box. I know when I played defender, I loved going forward. So I'd go forward. So that's how that would be my message to get those kids out there.
Do you think kids can do it without club? Because here in the U.S., club sports seems to be like that pathway to get people there. Although I think from my experiences, because I didn't have the club experience, I feel like that money, if people are going to send it, are better served for them taking a vacation to Latin America and letting your kids play out there for like a week with some other kids.
Yeah. Where's there?
Up there.
Get there? You talking about the pro or college or
College? Yeah, well, even college. I mean, because you played club, you had the good fortune to play club, and that's
Right.
what they do recruiting at the tournaments and things like that. But for those students or those athletes who are like, well, I could play in high school, I could play at rec, maybe I might not have those champions just yet to pay those club fees.
right?
You know, where can I go? What do I need to do? I mean, even basketball is like that now. I mean, basketball has AAU.
It's turned into. I do think there's a place for club. I think there's a place for everybody to play. I think the main thing is you have to enjoy. I don't care if you're rec. I don't look down on anybody who plays rec.
Yeah.
I've actually seen some really good players come out of rec at a age, but I think sometimes club as looked at as I get to wear the jersey. I'm a part of something. That's fine if you're looking for that. But I think, and this is on the club side too, I think there needs to be maybe a little bit more honesty about how hard it is to be a pro. I also think that at the youth level, there's been so much money spent on the travel. Like, I'm not so sure, like I had some amazing parents who helped pay for me to play.
Yeah.
My parents couldn't afford. My dad's after the first year, he said, look, son, I can't afford to pay. So imagine how many other probably out there were in the same situation.
Yeah, well, that was the basis for my question, because even, some club teams that I know that are all African American in, say, Atlanta, I mean, they're making some sacrifices, and the parents are in a certain, socioeconomic bracket to make those things happen. And for those students who, one, you might be a first generation player, you're also dealing with your community doesn't understand, but it's like your parents want to support you, but they don't have the means to do that. It's like, does the club system have to be the only way that your child can be seen and succeed, especially if they have the talent and they're developing their technical ability and technical awareness?
Right. I think this is where the professional clubs come in, similar to MLS, to where they're funding their programs.
Yeah.
And I think as that grows, it's going to help, because then instead of you paying money for your son or daughter to get a tryout,
they're developing them.
Well, they say, well, we think they are good enough right now. So it's not about the parent paying me money. It's about, we are going to develop the best we can your son or daughter. So we're going to take care of that.
Yeah.
And that's why I have no problem. Earlier I said about the young player. He didn't play in a big club. He wasn't traveling all over the place. And I've started to see, and he didn't join a big club till later. I'm starting to see that now. And now it's kind of opened my eyes up to it can be done. I do think the pro clubs need to have a bigger footprint. I think they are, because they're already scouting young talent. But I think what happens is some of the other clubs want to be seen as producing pros. In reality, we're all part of it, but just at different levels.
Yeah.
And to be a pro is not easy. To be a collegiate player is not easy. And that's one of the messages that I want to get across to these players. And enjoy the game. I mean, you're learning so many life skills. The money side of it, to be honest, I wish it would change. I wish it would change, because there's some opportunity that's not being, I shouldn't say given, but people just can't afford it. And I get it. You know, times are tough. It's crazy for a simple game. It's really expensive, isn't it?
It is, where you can go other places and people are playing all day long and you have access and ability, and just, you can just, if you want to get in and generally enjoy it, you can do that.
Right, right. And you know, it's really by the grace of God that I had people who like I said were champions, not only financially but to bring me through that whole process, or else I wouldn't have played. I would have not have played. So I hope that as the game grows in this country, there's a way to solve that issue. And I think as well, the kids need to be trained on their own. I think they're depending on me and coaches to not only inspire them, but to train them. You know, go out and do what you know to do.
Mm-hmm.
Those hours, I think, add up more than being on the field. And
Yeah.
I'm speaking from experience. I would just go out and hit balls, and you know, and maybe have my dad stand in goal, and if I was mad at him, try to hit him.
So two quick questions and we'll close it out. What's your career advice for young Black players navigating the game right now, being that we are on the beginning stages of people kind of realizing there's some changes that need to be made in viewing players of a certain color or culture and things like that? How can they best navigate those challenges right now, be it whether they want to play in college or play professionally? And then the
Right.
second question, we'll talk about, you know, how you're inspiring people to say yes.
I think you got to be fearless. You have to be fearless. You have to be willing to learn, and you got to be willing to learn fast. You have to be willing to take the adversity that's going to happen on the field, off the field, and honestly use it to inspire you. And there's a good chance there are going to be people in your family, people in your community that don't understand why you want to play soccer, why you want to do something, but you cannot let that keep you from doing it. And once you start the process, you have to remind yourself of that. You have to remind yourself of where you started. That is one thing that I like. Just when you were talking earlier, that reminded me of where I started and why I started. When I remember that, that keeps me going forward. That kept me going forward when the naysayers came.
Mm-hmm.
That kept me going forward when I got injured.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And I would say when they start out, you know, I call it the prize. You may not see the prize right away or the joy you're going to have, but the game over time gave me joy. It gave me, I call the prizes of friends, travel, championships, all these things that I couldn't see when I started out.
Yeah.
I have to remember where I started and why I started. It sounds so simple, but I said earlier that I almost, in a way, stopped playing because I forgot why I played. I started falling into the trap of what everybody else was doing.
Mm-hmm.
And there are no secrets to being a good person or a good athlete. You can watch all the new videos. Mm-hmm. You can watch it's like what I think Deion Sanders was talking about the other day, the new trainers.
Yeah, he was.
Not a lot of stuff that's new.
Mm-hmm.
So if you want to be a soccer player, you can be a soccer player. If you don't have access to a club, I bet you have YouTube. Mm-hmm. You can watch the right people. You find you a wall and you do it day in and day out. Don't let anybody tell you you need to pay this amount of money for these shoes, these coaches when you're first starting out. Mm-hmm. Get out there and do it. And when you do that, you'll see your game go to here. You'll see your joy level go to here. And then when you go play and you have those doubters, those people are like, who is this guy? I've seen him out in the park sometimes train or at his house. What's he doing? And you go out there and you ball him up a couple of times, you're going to be like, oh. And when that happens, don't forget why you were able to, what I call ball him up, was because of what you were doing before and where you started. So I hope that makes sense. That was a little rant by me.
No, that's perfect. So why have you been inspired through your company, EMT, to help others say yes?
Because it's a simple word. It's a simple word that I had to tell myself. Yes, I should be playing soccer. Yes, I can play at Clemson. That's like my dad reminds me of that. At the time, Clemson wasn't recruiting me. I went down to UAB. They offered me a full scholarship. I said I needed to talk to my dad. And my dad said, I know you want to go to Clemson. And he goes, can you play there? I said, yeah. He said, come on home. Coaching change happened. That's how I ended up there.
Wow.
I had to keep telling myself, yes. I stayed at home my first year.
I did not even know that.
Yeah, I stayed at home my first year and drove my mom's station wagon with a dent in the front to school. I had to tell myself, yes, that I belonged when I was in environments where I didn't feel like I belonged. I had to tell myself, yes, I could graduate. I left school early. I went to graduate. I even had in high school people saying, yeah, I don't know if you're prepared to, go to a 4-year school. But yes was instilled in me by my parents. As you know, boy, we got some praying parents in Seneca.
Yeah.
And neither one of my parents went to college. So they instilled it in me. And I literally talked to myself like, yes, John, you can do this. Fitness, I'd be talking to myself, yeah, I can do this. And that's why I think it's a powerful thing. If yes gets you started to take that first step, that's what I'm looking for. Because I could have said no to playing.
Yeah.
And I was a shy kid. I used to stutter. And usually I probably would have said no, but I just, from my parents, kept telling me, hey, there's something in you. And that's what's allowed me to experience some of the things that I've been blessed to experience. Because you're going to hear a lot of no's, a lot of maybes, especially now. Everybody wants to give you advice without knowing you.
That's true.
And now, like, me, so, you can always give me advice. But I realized that, like, even with coaches, they would give me advice. They didn't know me. They never took the time to know me. And I made that mistake once of taking advice from somebody about my game, because they said, no, that's not who you are as a player. And I knew in my mind, yes, it is. That's actually one of the things that changed my game as a defender. Because I always knew I could go forward. Why just sit back there and defend the whole day? If I can get forward, we score more goals, and then it keeps them honest. That's why I think yes is a powerful word. And the company Educate, Motivate, Train started from my youth. The reason I came up with that was because I was thinking one day, how was I able to maximize my ability? And it was basically, I would watch the coaches or the VHS tapes, educate myself. Well, I knew I had to go train. What's one of the hardest things after you educate yourself in between, let's say you're in school, that test, or going out and doing it? You need what? Motivation. So I would motivate myself, and then I would go train, and then hit the repeat button. I'd do it again. That wasn't something I read in the book. It was something I realized I was doing. I didn't know I was doing it until I was working on a blog one day, and it was talking about, I was working on a blog, and I think it was called Thinking Like a Kid, why we should think like a kid. And I was like, what was I thinking about back then when to maximize my talent. That was it. And I still use that today because I let myself at one time, you can read so much and then it takes you really away from what you're meant to do.
Mm-hmm.
When right in front of me I had these simple concepts. I said, well, if I can simplify it, educate, motivate, train, add a yes in there, and remember that'll get me started. So.
Awesome. Where can people find you on social and online to book you for motivational speaking? Because I know you do that. And then if they want to reach out to you for advice, coaching tips, and other opportunities.
Yeah, you can find me. I am on social media.
Awesome.
You can find me on Instagram, Jay Wilson. I think it's 25 actually. Yeah, I don't remember it as well. LinkedIn.
Mm-hmm.
I do a lot on LinkedIn. Those would be the best ways. I'll also give you my email address, emtjaw@gmail.com. And I enjoy giving advice when I can, usually sharing my stories. Doesn't mean that it may be a fit for you, but I try to be as honest as I can. And if I don't get back to you, please be patient, because right now we are, like everyone else, navigating the pandemic and getting ready for the season. But I love to help when I can.
Awesome. Thank you so much for sharing your amazing stories, your insight, and your expertise, John. It's been a pleasure.
Thank you, Kiana. And it's pretty cool to see the passion that you have for the game and what you've done. It's pretty amazing. It's crazy how the game can, I guess, can do that, right?
It can. I mean,
all over the world.
You can have a passion for anything and take it to crazy places, even the Super Bowl. So yeah.
Right?
That makes me giggle to this day.
Yeah.
It all started with John. John saying I could try out for the varsity girls soccer team.
That's awesome. Hey, makes my Monday even better.
Okay, have a great week. Thanks, everybody.
Bye-bye.